Good evening, everybody. This is Jamie Paxton, your host of Warrior Spotlight, where the stories are real, the emotions are raw, and the hearts are courageous. Okay, we got a little back talking on that one. So, introducing my co-host, my husband, Billy Paxton, as always.
Good evening.
And then tonight's special guest is Monroe County Sheriff Troy Goodnough. Welcome, Sheriff. How are you?
Thank you. Great. And it's a pleasure to be here and such an honor.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So we're super excited. We want to talk about a couple quick things. For those of you who can see this out here, I'm not sure which way it goes. So excited. We just got our hats in. So you can reach out to us and get one of your hats if you want to. They are $25. And then we will have we've got your 6 campaign cards that'll be coming out here as well. Super excited about that. We have Joel McConnell is our president of our board, and he has been on our show before. And
He's the first. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he's the first.
He is the first veteran to complete our program as well.
That
Yes.
needs to be in his credentials, I think.
Yes, absolutely. He's probably tired of me saying it, but yes.
No,
I think it's amazing.
It
yes.
is, that he
It says
comes
a
from
lot.
That's exactly. And
Yes,
he becomes
it's-
the president of the board.
Yeah, it says a lot.
It does.
But he is a history buff, loves military history. And so we were talking because I really wanted to add a piece of that component to what we're doing, right? Because where we're at today is from where we were in the past, right?
Right.
And so what he has put together, we call it the McConnell Minute. And I don't want to tell you what today's message is, but we'll listen here in a second so you can hear it. And then we'll talk about it after we do it. So whenever you're ready.
And my earmugs, so we can hear McConnell's minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The emotions are raw and the stories are real, and we're live.
We always just have to go with whatever happens, Sheriff.
It's
So.
all
You
good.
know what?
It's
That's
all
good.
good.
That's right. That's
Our
right.
audience
So we're ready.
understands.
We're ready
Yep.
for the McConnell Minute. Go ahead and put those
Let's
on.
listen to Joel's. Oh, I won't listen to the World of Outlaws. Good thing they ain't watching.
Just a McConnell Minute. I am your host, Joel McConnell. This is episode 1, where we are going to discuss a little bit of history on the Army's military police. The military police is a relatively young branch in the United States Army. It was officially established on September 26, 1941, but you can trace its lineage back to the Revolutionary War time frame, 1776. Just prior to World War II, they formed a few camps that helped train police officers. One is located at Camp Custer near Battle Creek, Michigan. Camp Custer is named after General George Armstrong Custer of Monroe, Michigan. They've been involved in every major battle since World War I. They can be identified by their colors of green and gold, and their collar insignia are the cross pistols. Their motto is assist, protect, and defend. And behind me, you'll see my dad's uniform. He is a Vietnam era veteran and was drafted in 1969 and served with military police. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, I know. I
Hello,
love
friends.
that.
This is the
Thank you
McConnell
so
Minute.
much,
I am your
Andy,
host,
for
Joel
doing
McConnell.
that.
This is
Absolutely.
episode
I know.
1.
Wealth of knowledge.
Right.
Stuff I
He
didn't even
is.
know. Right?
Yeah. So, and you can just tell. I mean, he just like spews it out, right?
Yeah, he was good.
And so we want to bring whatever we're going to be talking about, the show in that week. He's going to find some history behind it in the military, and then just share it with our guests.
Great. I can tell you, his information just educated me. I
Yeah.
did not know when the military police branch of the Army was introduced. And furthermore, I didn't even know the relationship between that and Fort Custer. I had the opportunity to train in Fort Custer as a member of the Sheriff's Office Special Response Team. So very interesting.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm glad you put the headset on and listened to it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You did a very good job, Joel.
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
proud of you.
Yeah.
Did a great
Fabulous. And yeah, you know, I'm
Already excited for the next one.
It's his radio voice and his
I know
personality.
he was so nervous, but
Was that
he
the
did such a
first
great
take
job.
or your 5th take? So we'll
We're
find
just
out.
call it the first take.
Yeah,
That's okay. Whatever
Yeah,
it is.
it
Yeah,
is.
no,
Right,
he
you
did.
did good.
Yeah, so
Fabulous.
excited.
Good
Yeah.
job.
But we are here to talk about you. So let's get started with you.
Okay.
Okay.
When
Go ahead, honey.
when did you start? I mean, give us when you first started. When you were young? Did you always your family was in the police?
I had no family members in law enforcement. My grandparents owned their own business. My father worked for my grandparents.
What was that?
My grandparents owned a hardware store in Maybe, and they had a plumbing, heating, electrical business, and they. So my father, they were in the HVAC business. My grandfather, my father, and my grandfather was instrumental in a lot of choices I made in life, and he always said that focused on being in skilled trades. He says, he says you need to become a journeyman in skilled trades, whether it's HVAC or whatever. And I chose to go into tool and die, but that was not my passion. Wasn't there. I did that because that was what my grandfather wanted me to do. And he often said, skilled trades is always needed, no matter whether they're building cars or building whatever is being constructed. Skilled trades have.
Yeah, and we've lost that. As
Mike Rowe talks about that all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we've lost that. There was a period now, and
well,
they
during
need to
the
bring
recession,
it back.
and nobody went to trade school.
Yep.
And now we're hurting for tradesmen.
time.
So
Crane operators, welders, everything.
Whatever, yeah. Whether and not even just skilled trades. I mean, even our professional truck drivers and stuff. They're all needed, and everybody kind of went in the technology direction for that period of time. But nevertheless, while in serving my apprenticeship, I joined the sheriff's office as a reserve deputy, and because that's really what I always wanted to do. And I had the opportunity to work with a great young officers, and kind of showed me the ropes. And then
how old were you when you decided to do that?
I was 24.
24.
Actually, I was 24 when I joined the department full time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and what is a reserve deputy?
So a reserve deputy is a little bit like a reservist in the military.
Okay.
In this particular time, there was actually a 3-month, once a week for 3 months, we went to a class held at the sheriff's office. And the sheriff at that time was Walter Trowbridge. And we went once a week for 2 hours, and we learned everything of the basics of what police do: report writing, basic laws, physical fitness. And then once you finish that, you would go out. We have no police powers. We were not paid, but we would go out and ride as a second person in the patrol cars. Now, some contracts, like at the time, Bedford contract would pay for a reservist to ride. There, some of the other contracts were, but for the most part, we had no police powers. We worked directly under the supervision of a certified police officer. I was offered a job prior to me being hired, but I wanted to finish my apprenticeship first. So once I became a journeyman tool and die maker, I met my obligations to my grandfather.
Right on.
And then I pursued the career that I wanted in law enforcement. So I joined the sheriff's office. I started out as a corrections officer, and
always here in Monroe County.
Always in Monroe County. I've not left Monroe.
So
County.
how was your grandfather with you becoming the police?
My grandfather unfortunately passed away before I even graduated high school. So, I still felt
sure. I was going to say that's huge.
To hold
Good for you.
Honor to him.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I joined the sheriff's office as a corrections officer. I was hired as a corrections officer. And then at the time, Sheriff Carl Van Wert, within a year, I was selected to go to the police academy. I went to the police academy up in Bay City, Michigan, Delta College.
Right on.
After the police academy, I returned to the department, and then I was assigned to the road patrol. And I remained on the road patrol for a number of years, and I worked my way up through the ranks.
Nice. That was a very quick. And how long have you been a police officer?
It'll be 31 years.
Really? And how long have you been a sheriff?
Or I should say, let me back up. I've been on the sheriff's office, employed at sheriff's office for almost 31 years. And I've been a certified police officer for almost 30. Wow. And obviously I was elected sheriff on in this past election, and I assumed the duties of sheriff on January 1 of 2021.
And
yes, and congratulations too for that.
This is your first
this is my
tour,
first term.
but first term.
First term, yes.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's cool.
Now, are there restrictions on how many terms a sheriff can serve?
We are not. We are not restricted. No.
Okay, so you could be a sheriff forever.
My family and my wife may say a little bit.
Sure. Right on.
Right.
Right.
But that's it's a valid question.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends and the guys that work with me, they all say, Sheriff, how long are you going to be here? I said, I'm going to work I have two perspectives. One, I'm going to work as long as I continue to have fun.
Right.
And number two, as long as I continue to serve the citizens of Monroe County in the manner in which they want to be served.
Mhm.
And we kind of joke about it. If I get wayward in my position here, and we've seen some politicians that do that, right?
Sure.
I said, it's
Nah.
your job is to come into my office and say, Sheriff, you might want to think of
Time to go.
time to go. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, and that's kind of our standing joke. And
Mhm.
but in all, all kidding aside, I'm not sure how long I'm going to stay.
Sure.
And I hope that the citizens of Monroe County, they're going to determine how long I
Yeah,
stay.
I was going to say
Every
that's
4
pretty
years,
much-
they're going
we
to
found that
determine
out. Yep.
whether
Right.
I'm doing the job that they feel is appropriate. And if they don't feel appropriate, they'll be the first to let me know.
Right.
So is there one sheriff for the whole Monroe County?
Yeah.
Or
So we have one sheriff, and that obviously that's me. We cover
Sure.
564 square miles.
I didn't know. I
Yep.
mean,
And then I have deputy sheriffs. So
so do they ride in a car that says sheriff on the side as well, or
they
no?
all say sheriff. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
because I was going to say that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm in Lucas County a lot working, but you see the sheriff car.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
Monclova and so forth. But
Yep. They're all and in obviously in Ohio, each county it has their own sheriff of each county.
there's
And-
only one in Monroe County, and how many deputies?
Well, right now we are budgeted currently we're budgeted for 68 deputies.
Wow, and they all say sheriff on the car.
All cars are the same. Yeah.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying is because when you see that sheriff car, it's like, man, that's meaning now that I'm
And
thinking
it's a
through my
deputy
lifetime.
sheriff.
You're right,
Right.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But it's makes you think about it. There's another sheriff. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
well, and that's really, in all essence, society.
That's why it says sheriff on the side of the car.
and it's a deputy sheriff that's operating that
Sure.
vehicle. But in essence, we're all deputy sheriffs. I'm
Right.
just
in charge of them.
I'm just the sheriff.
Sheriff, right?
And then we have different ranks. Like in our case, under me is the undersheriff.
Mhm. Now is it
and-
like all the way down, not a pecking order, but
Well, the sheriff's office is a paramilitary organization.
Mhm.
So we do resemble, we always say, the military. We're a paramilitary organization. So the previous sheriff, we had a sheriff and two majors, and then a chief deputy under us. And I
Okay.
was a major under
That-
Sheriff Malone.
okay.
And what I did is when I took office, I changed that structure. I
Mm.
went back to a sheriff, undersheriff, chief deputy. I have captain, lieutenant, sergeants, and then deputies that patrol the road. And then in the jail division, we have corrections supervisors, which are at the rank of sergeant, and correction officers.
Mm.
So we have 60 correction officers and 10 supervisors in the jail. We're budgeted for over 160 employees at the sheriff's office.
Wow.
Wow. So I
That's
know
interesting, really.
COVID has been crazy for a multitude of reasons, right? But being a police officer isn't anything like what it used to be being a police officer. I'm not a police officer, but the media coverage, it tells us that, right? So can you just give us an inside look at
and
that?
I'll go a bit. You started out with COVID. COVID, we were very fortunate early on. Our sheriff was Sheriff Malone, and we took a very proactive approach, ensuring that our employees had the proper PPE, personal protection equipment,
Mhm.
and that we screened the employees when they arrived for work. We did self-assessments to mitigate our exposure
Sure.
to the problem.
Mhm.
But we could not just set back.
Right.
It's like the nurses and the doctors and a number of other professions
Mhm.
that didn't have the ability to just sit home.
Right.
And everybody says, well, you're frontline and gave us all these kudos, but truck drivers,
Yeah.
They-
They got
if
yeah,
they didn't haul the produce,
right.
the farmers in the field or the
Mhm.
people that were working, there's a lot of moving parts. And
Yeah, there is.
you know what? We appreciate people saying, well, the front line need this.
Mhm.
But in all essence, for us to survive,
Yeah.
there wasn't many jobs that weren't front line.
Right.
You
You're
know,
right.
that
That-
is-
you know,
There,
and
there
that's
wasn't.
it's a good,
So that's, when everybody was issued masks.
that's
and-
very
and-
humble of
and
you to
gloves.
say too, because
Well,
some people, right? It's the
they-
truth, but
it is. They say,
Yeah.
well, why does, what about this contractor? Well, that contractor's building that hospital and we
Yeah.
need that hospital.
Yeah.
So everybody was, in my opinion,
Mhm.
everybody was needed to get us through. Then you segued into a little bit. It is tough times for anybody in law enforcement, whatever
Mhm.
branch of law enforcement you're in or whatever capacity you serve in. It's unfortunate. And like I've told everybody, I just ask that the citizens of Monroe County don't paint their law enforcement
Mhm.
with a wide brush
Right.
Mhm.
because of the unfortunate climate around our country.
You
Certainly.
said that very well.
Yeah.
And when I say law enforcement, that means us at the sheriff's office, the Monroe City Police, the
Mhm.
local municipalities that have their own police departments, the Michigan State Police, the Department of Natural Resources, anybody that puts
Correct.
that
Badge
on.
on. Yes.
Mhm.
You're
Whether you're
100%
Border
right.
Patrol or
Mhm.
whatever you do.
Mhm.
And, I'm very fortunate to lead an organization that we don't have those issues that other organizations have. The previous sheriffs have always kept at the forefront of their mission or vision was customer service
Mhm.
and to be professional.
Mhm.
You don't always have to like what somebody says or does,
No.
but your reaction to what they do defines your character.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, our moral values and our character have to stand out.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have a fabulous group of men and women at the sheriff's office. And I can't speak for the other agencies in specific, but from a broad perspective as well. Monroe County is very fortunate
Mhm.
to have the fire service that they have,
Mhm.
the law enforcement service that they
Mhm.
have, and all the other public servants that we have.
Mhm. No, you're right about that. And you said that quite well. I got to say, I mean, because, and you got it more than me, but I mean, how we speak right now because of the current climate and
Mhm.
what we know that's been said about the police and all the defunding and everything. I mean, might as well say it. That's just horrible. But
Mhm.
and you're right, we don't see it. I don't see it, and I work in the inner city, like they paint it on the national news. And we're fortunate, but it's a lot of people see that, and that's what they think.
Well,
Mhm.
I'm going to go back to what you said about thinking every police car you saw was the sheriff.
Right.
That's not a bad thing,
No.
because that means
Right.
there's nothing negative going on
Yeah.
in your law enforcement community to be on the front page and
Correct.
draw your attention.
Yeah. Oh, it would be.
Let's look around the country.
Yes.
Right.
Let's look where some of these law enforcement leaders have made decisions that didn't fare well.
Mhm.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
on the news everywhere.
Absolutely.
And I say at the end of the day, it's the good leadership,
Mhm.
not me. It's all leadership.
All of it.
Mhm.
Right.
And we've been receiving a number of compliments from
Mhm.
citizens in the community on the organization and the changes that we have made.
Mhm.
And they say, well, sheriff this. And I said, well, let me stop you right there. I'm only good as the people I surround myself with.
Correct.
That is correct.
In the Monroe, I am the sheriff of the citizens.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The sheriff's office is the citizens' law enforcement. It's not mine.
Mhm.
Right.
They're not my employees.
Mhm.
They're the citizens of Monroe County's employees.
Mhm.
And I kind of joke. I says, I'm like the air traffic controller.
Right.
We guide.
Mhm.
We make sure everybody takes off okay and lands okay.
Right.
And they take care of everything in between.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
we as a group, we have to be rowing in the same direction to protect the citizens of Monroe
Yeah.
County.
And you said it too there. You've said a lot that is just, I don't want to use the word eloquent, but it's you're on top. I mean, when you said the moral compass, I mean, a lot of that has been lost, within, and that's what needs to guide all of us as human beings and Americans and citizens and people, because it's gone, in a lot of cases,
I tell them,
in my opinion.
yeah, no, and you're right. I tell all the new recruits and everybody we hire, the day you come in that door,
Mhm.
your character is impeccable.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The only thing you have when you leave is your character
Correct.
Mhm.
Mhm.
and your integrity. What your actions and your response will dictate whether you leave in a good light or you leave in a bad light.
And,
Right.
and it's funny because you as being at the top, as well as all them people, it's going to come back to you, because ultimately it is, as a leader or an owner of a business, we're all ultimately the one responsible and end up having to take it. So you're definitely what you're
Well,
saying when you speak to your people.
You're absolutely correct.
Mhm.
The old saying, the buck stops here, the
Yeah.
buck stops here.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It
whether
does,
I
yeah.
was there or
Right.
wasn't there, the buck stops with me.
And it's sad too, because I mean, is bad news travels quicker than good news.
Oh, we
And,
all
you
know
know,
that,
and
yeah.
that's the sad part. It really does,
Mhm.
because we'll always hear that. I mean, sometimes we hear the good ones, the kudos and different things, but,
Sure.
and I find myself a lot trying to tell people, you know, random, you know, because we need more of that, you know, because we always hear the bad stuff.
Right.
I mean, I grew up with that, but the bottom line is you know, you're always going to hear that bad stuff. You don't hear the good stuff.
And that's
you know.
one of the things that we're changing in the culture. Right?
Mhm.
And if you've noticed, you know, if you get the Monroe News or some of the other publications, usually once, twice a week, there's something in there good at the sheriff's office.
Good.
There's someone in the sheriff's office doing it. And really, we're rebranding the sheriff's office. I'm not saying that there was anything bad before.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, I don't ever
Mhm.
want to say
No.
that.
Mhm.
No different than when I decide to leave office,
Mhm.
whatever that is,
Mhm.
whoever succeeds me
Right.
will change.
Sure.
And they will do things different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we don't want the same old. I
No.
always use the adage: Ford don't continue to build the same car.
No.
Right.
Every year
No.
we get a new
But
model.
it's sad that
Right,
we
yeah.
are afraid of
Yeah.
change, or people don't like
Well, and
change.
change
But
is
that's the good
difficult.
part with, you know, fresh leadership coming in, right?
Absolutely.
Is the different visions that we bring, right? Because as we go up through those ranks, right, we're like, oh, we're almost to the top to where we get to make some of those decisions
Right.
that you've been molding since you were the young lieutenants, you know,
Right.
all the way up.
I couldn't have said that any better. You're
Mhm.
absolutely
Sure.
correct.
How many years? Is it a yearly thing or 4 years, or how long
The
is
term
your
of
term?
sheriff is 4 years.
4 years, like the
Yep.
presidents or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually,
Is it on the same schedule?
We follow, yes.
It seems like that,
we
obviously.
follow the presidential election cycle.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Right on,
Yeah.
right on. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
a 4-year deal.
It's a
and then-
4-year,
So
yeah.
we need to ask you in 4 years. But I like the rebranding because it is true.
Well, I plan on being here longer than 4 years.
No, I know,
I'll tell
but
you that.
I mean,
Mhm.
But that's
I'm
at the
not
hands
just-
of the citizens
Correct.
of Monroe County.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could tell you again, with leadership is everything coming from a very structured environment, right? You can learn from bad leaders,
Mhm.
right? You can learn good stuff from bad leaders, right? But when you have a good leader, you will follow them into battle for sure, right? And I think that is so key. I know we spoke during your election and stuff, and you know, I know you were excited about becoming the sheriff and some of the opportunities that you would have when you became sheriff, and I love that. I love that it's not about you. I love that it's about the people. It's about your young officers and molding them to where they can be, you know, a sheriff someday themselves. And I love that a lot. That's how
Absolutely.
we were in the military too.
You know, a couple things I want to segue off of what you said, if I could, please. So, we were usually the sheriffs go to a 2-week sheriff school after they're elected, and COVID, we couldn't have that.
Mhm.
And we had a 4-hour presentation via Zoom.
Mm.
Okay. And then they tell you, this is everything you need to know how to run a sheriff's office, right?
Yeah.
In 4 hours. And we had to go around the
Did you
room.
take
and-
notes?
Yeah, I did take
Oh, you
notes, right?
rewound it.
He
huh?
videotaped
Replayed
it.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we went around the room. There's 26 new sheriffs in Michigan this year.
Oh,
Wow.
Out of 83.
Oh, wow.
So we were the second biggest group of sheriffs in
Wow.
the history. And so we went around the room and they said, just say a little bit of something. And I said, I worked for 4 sheriffs and I vowed that I would not work for another one. So if I wasn't the sheriff, I was retiring.
Oh, wow.
And they said, well, you know, what do you see in that? And I said, the value that I have is I had the opportunity to work for 4 separate leaders and I could determine what I liked about their leadership
Mhm.
and put that in my good box.
Mhm.
Correct. Yeah, there you go.
I had the opportunity to see what I didn't like or I didn't agree with,
Mhm.
and I put it in my other toolbox.
Right.
That-
So
but,
when
at,
you
but at the end of the day, you were absolutely correct, Jamie. I had what a lot of other people don't have. And I had that opportunity to work for 4 sheriffs.
Mhm.
And they all had great attributes
Mhm.
that, and I can tell you that my leadership and what we've done in the last 40 plus days of our administration, something from each one of them sheriffs has been put into place.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
even 5 sheriffs, and that was Sheriff Harrington. I didn't work under him. My grandfather and he was very good friends. And one of the things that I always remember is every time they did a property check or a business check, they put a card in the door. They said,
Mhm.
we were here.
Right.
And we haven't done that since. So
Mm.
that's something that we implemented
Oh,
under our
yeah.
leadership.
Good for you.
So when they do a property check at 1:00 in the morning, they put that card in the door. And I can tell you that there's only been a couple days since we launched that program 3-4 weeks ago that we have not received a communication, either an email or a comment on Tell the Sheriff, or I've received a personal text message saying, what was this? And if this is what I think it is, thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, at the end of the day, that's what drives me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I know that we're giving the citizens of Monroe County value.
There you go.
They pay taxes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what am I getting for this,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Right.
It's a lot of
Well,
money.
we hear that all the
Right.
time. You
And
work for
include-
me, and
To include
then-
them in the process,
Yeah.
though,
100%.
is what they want.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
right.
They
And
want somebody who's going to listen to them and be included in that process.
That's right. And that's what we want. And we've
Mhm.
got a lot, we've got a 18-month timeline of things that we want to accomplish. So there's a lot of things coming down the road, and we're excited. I mean, every day I'm happy. It's
Good for
now
you.
some days get,
Sure.
I look out my door and go, and what did I sign up for?
Right. I was going to say, yeah. And what do they say? When you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
And I can tell
And,
you,
and you've been working your whole life for this position, I can tell.
and the citizens of Monroe County have been great to me.
Good.
Very great. And I feel as sheriff, I'm giving back. They allowed me to put 2 children, have a home,
Mhm.
put 2 children through college.
Right.
And I just couldn't be happier.
Well, we both grew up, born and raised here in Monroe County, but
Mhm.
went to Bedford, both of us. I mean, you know.
I know
so-
we're on South County side, but
Yeah, we're in Erie now, but yeah, is that it?
Well,
I don't
ironically-
understand that, but I've
that what that
heard
means?
the heritage. Yes,
Yeah,
we are
South-
on South
this is
County
South
side.
County. This is
Yeah, South
Right.
County.
We get
But I will tell you,
discriminated
my-
against or no?
Yeah,
No,
my-
but I mean,
What's that?
are we being discriminated against? 'Cause
Oh,
I
no,
never heard that
absolutely
either.
not.
We're closer to Toledo.
Well,
Yeah.
that's better than being
So they
closer to
think.
Detroit.
Yeah.
Well, you got a point.
I
But,
guess.
Yeah.
but you know, Monroe is so unique. We have so many different cultures. And, you know, I want to say, so my first full year of patrol, I was assigned to Bedford.
Okay.
So I worked out of here. And you know, it's just, there's the different cultures. And
Mhm.
it's, we can appreciate that,
Mhm.
you know. And Bedford's a great community, great giving community. You know, just look at the school, the football stadium, just look
Mhm.
around.
Right.
You know, the leaders, the past leaders of this community, every one of them from Pearl Albert Green just loved this community and gave everything to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I on my drive here this evening, even though it was dark, you know, I always reminisce. That used to be an empty field. That
Oh,
used to
yeah,
be an
for
empty
sure.
field. That was an
Yep.
empty field. And now we have all these
Mhm.
homes
Isn't that crazy?
yeah, but that's okay, right?
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 55.
55. Yeah. And so you're right when you see. Well, I thought of that as I did, but I knew he wasn't a woman, so I
Yeah,
figured he
no,
was.
I'm
No,
okay
I
with
got
that.
you.
And he knew he wasn't going to lie.
Yeah, you're true there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, you know, it's refreshing to look. And
Yeah.
do we have our problems? Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, we can't have a population over 150,000 and not expect to have
No.
some
Oh,
type
sure.
of criminal
No.
activity.
Absolutely.
But
Well,
for the most part, if you compare our community with other communities of equal
size.
size,
There you go.
you see we're pretty safe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I said that too about the girls went to Mason, but meaning it's small, but you're still, even though there was a graduate 112 maybe once when Cody graduated, but you're still going to have the bad, the problems are just not as large.
That's
you know,
right.
the numbers
That's
are smaller, so the numbers are smaller. That's the bottom
Absolutely.
line. Whether it's picking for a football team, you don't have the pool.
To
So
pick
you
from
still have
as
the
other
bad
schools.
kids
Yeah.
and different things, but overall, you know,
So we're going to shift gears here a minute. Do you have any military in your family?
Yes, my father was in the military, and that in my immediate family, I had uncles that were in the Army. I had an uncle that was in the Marine Corps.
Is your father still around?
He's not. My father
Oh.
passed away in 2000.
So sorry about that. And what branch was he in?
He was in the Army.
Okay. And what did he do?
He was in the infantry, I believe. We never really talked much about the military.
Mm.
Growing up, it just wasn't that conversation. I actually talked more about the military probably in the last 10 years with my uncle, who retired from the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a cousin that retired from the Navy and one that retired from the Marine Corps as well.
Yeah.
So
We at this coalition meeting that I was talking to you about, right? So Jennifer from Habitat is one of our big community partners, right? And her father was in the military, and working with her for 2 years, I didn't even know that her dad was in the military, right? And then come to find out a few months back that he was in, and but she's never had any of these conversations, right? And now she's totally submerging herself in this veteran capacity, right? In this veteran world. And now she wants to dive in and just, you know, ask her dad some questions, right? And we all cheered her on at this because everybody else was some sort of veteran in the room, right? We cheered her on to say, ask him.
Sure.
He's going to want to tell you, right?
Yeah, right.
Don't dig through the photo albums, listen to his stories,
Right.
and because if you ask him, he's going to want to share them.
Sure. Absolutely.
Especially because you're coming from a position now where you're engaging with veterans, right? And you want to know that side of things. So that was pretty cool.
And unfortunately, we just didn't engage in that.
Sure.
And at a young age, after high school, my father moved south, so we didn't have a lot of interaction. But it's ironic that you say that. And by all means, I'm not going to compare law enforcement to the military. But we're kind of the same way. We aren't going to tell you a whole lot, but if you ask and get in there, we'll share our stories with you. And I don't think it's by design. I think it's just how it happens. You know what I'm saying?
And that is a perfect segue with where I want to go, right? Because everybody's like, why are you having the sheriff on the show? How does he play a part in that? Well, one, you're the sheriff, right? But you have been a huge community supporter of the program that we run, right? Little Blessings, and veterans in general, right? And so I am very appreciative. When we had our big warrior fundraiser, you were there, you supported us. I know you and I've talked about some things, building some future relationships and doing some things down the road. And I think we'll have an opportunity to do that when the timing is right and things settle and stuff like that. But you just pointing out that the likeness between the police officers and the military, and I'm going to throw the fire department in there too, because I'm working with the
100%. I don't mean to
Chief
leave them out of nothing.
No. So I'm working directly with Chief Massengill as well, right?
Oh, great.
And so we are adding those components to what we're doing to our local first responders, right? And you were kind enough to send out a couple
young deputies.
Right there. Andy just had him up, Andy.
Young deputies,
and
Chief Massengill sent out some of his firefighters.
Yes.
So we could do a photo shoot, but we actually ended up doing an exercise.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not sure what kind of feedback you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Deputy Moore.
Yeah. He was amazing. He was truly amazing. He was so engaged. And he asked about volunteering at the farm too, which I love that,
right. Yeah.
Right. And that's what we want to do. We enjoy the freedom that we have today because of our veterans.
Yeah.
And we will do everything we can to, within our resources available, the resources that we have available, to support that. And I, you have my word on that. The sad irony of this, and I'm just going to brief this, is so many of our veterans suffer from substance abuse disorder and mental health because of what they witnessed or were subject to protecting us so that we can sleep at night.
Yeah.
And there's a soft spot in my heart for them. And it breaks my heart when I see them come into the criminal justice system and know that, you know what? They defended our country.
Right.
They fought for us, and they stood on that wall. And because they stood on that wall, their mental health is challenged, and they made decisions that I really don't think they realized that they made.
No, and it's good. That is true. It's very true, and we all have choices, but some of them.
But are the choices, are you cognitive enough
to
realize what choices
and
you're
that's
making?
awesome.
So
that
I'm a mentor in the veteran court system.
I know you are, yes.
And then also in the Lucas County system as well, both. But the piece where, I really wanted to be able to integrate you guys, the first responders, the police officers, and the fire department, they hold a very near and dear place to me. One, I always wanted to be a police officer. I knew I didn't have the temperament to be a police officer, so it was in the best interest of myself. So I didn't go to jail.
Right.
When I first met her, right home, maybe
she was going.
So I really, that's all I ever wanted to do, was to be a police officer. And then my uncle was a fireman, and my niece is a firefighter. And so that has been a huge heritage in our family as well, right? And so twofold with this, right? With what you guys are going through, right? Guys and gals, let me make sure I clarify
right,
that.
right.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
So, but the piece that, because I've had so many people say, well, why would you bring first responders into this, right? Why would you try to even bring them in there? Because our civilian integration is critical to these veterans, right? This is a piece that gets so lost and so muddied in the water, right? Because they just think, okay, we have to help veterans with PTSD, right? There's so much more to it, right?
Oh, so
We
much
do
more.
not live in the military anymore. We live out here in the civilian world. And you as police officers and Chief Massengill and his fire department, right? You guys are the closest thing we have to military relationships, right? So to bring you in as community partners, right? You guys are our first line of semi kind of communication stuff, right? And Chief Massengill and I were talking about, the trauma and how it's endured, and and he come to the farm to kind of see how some of the horse stuff worked. And I mean, he was really enlightened by it, because in some of his stuff he was told, military has one trauma and done. They're usually just one and done. And I was like, I don't know who told you that, because that is so not even right.
It's
right?
kind of like once a trauma, always a trauma.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, because I know you guys go out and you deal with
Every
things
day.
every
Yeah.
day, right? The fire department could deal with stuff every single day. And you have to pack it. We know the statistics of drinking as police officers and as firefighters, right? Those are coping mechanisms, right? Those are coping skills. And so that's why we want to be able to incorporate this program, right? As a safe space, right? For the police department, the firefighters, right?
All these people that go into battle from a different perspective.
Correct.
And we can, from law enforcement, that partnership, we can rely on what those military veterans witnessed, and hey, how did you get through it? Maybe you can help us get through it. And likewise, maybe we endured something, saw something that's trauma. I mean, if you look back at our children, and I don't mean to segue too far, but they say, what are some of the problems with our youth today? Because they endured a traumatic event at a young age, and that has driven their response to society.
Absolutely.
And that's no different. How do we fix that? We talk to people that went through that same situation. We call it peer support. And hey, how did you get through it? How did you continue to maintain your sanity and be a productive member of society?
And I think a key component to that, I apologize, I did not mean to interrupt you, but a key component, because I have been to some PTSD meetings, right? And some of them are terrible, because all you do is marinate on the bad stuff, right? There's no growth, there's no moving forward, right? And so my first year out, I have a lot of people confused as to why it was so terrible for me. Why was it so bad? Well, because I came out of that 25 years of structure, right? And, I've had some things throughout my military career, but I'm in an environment that I know nothing about. I am a fish out of water, right? And so it was critical that I learned coping skills to be where I live at today, right? And so to be able to move forward, we now have implemented in the last probably 6 months a spouses program, right? Because we get so many questions like, why are you doing this now? Why are you doing this now? Because it affects the entire family, right?
Oh,
We have, you just talked about the kids, right? Because the kids experience something, right? We have veteran children in the children program where their father was killed in action, or their parents sleep all day, or they've tried to commit suicide, or it's endless, right?
Endless.
And so in order for us to help those children move forward, they have to be in a healthy environment, right? And be around people who understand those type of circumstances, right? And give them coping skills, right? So I think a partnership with first responders, especially here locally, our Monroe community, right, is just critical to, the component of the veteran merging out into the civilian sector, right? You guys understand.
Yeah. And when you said that, I mean, I know about the parallel between the military and the law enforcement, or what. I mean, maybe I see it different, but we all do. I see a parallel, just because maybe it's the uniform, maybe it's basic training in its own right, maybe it's the weapon, but I see a lot. I mean, the War of the Freedoms, absolutely unquestionable, but every day law enforcement is basically in the home front, giving us our freedom from criminals, different things, so I think it's a huge thing that we help them. And I've said it because the PTSD isn't just, I mean, I know it is, it's in all aspects of life. I mean, I struggle with stuff, anxiety and issues. And what is the other word? Where you get all wound up and, you know, where you get wound up and you feel anxious and all this. I mean, there's 2 or 3 times a week I feel like that. I don't need medication for it, but the point is, we all have our own issues.
Right. But in what I've heard out of, so the veterans' mouths, right?
Mhm.
We're very grateful for police officers and firefighters who are here day in and day out,
Yeah.
right? And then I've heard police officers and firefighters say, well, I'm not going to compare myself to a military person,
Sure.
right? It's a respect that
That's
we
right.
each have for one another, right?
Because you're both
We
putting your lives on the
We
line.
respect exactly where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And we don't value ourselves over one another
That's right.
whatsoever,
Mhm.
right?
We do not.
It is a complete respect
Yeah.
that we have.
That's what I'm.
and
me
we
too.
do see the importance as a military person,
Mhm.
you know,
Absolutely.
for
And
sure.
me in the
Yeah.
middle, being a
Mhm.
spouse or a civilian, as you will,
Yeah.
I see, because I would owe the gratitude the same, and I see them all the time. And I'm like I
Mhm.
said, I'm more cognate or conscious of that. And did you serve? It isn't. Are you a veteran? You know, because she taught me that one. And I ask everybody if I see them, and every police officer, like at Barney's or wherever it is, I thank them for their service. And they're kind of like taken back from that.
Well,
and
because I think, and I don't mean to cut you
No,
off,
absolutely.
is
I
we're
keep
humble.
going if you didn't.
We're
So
humble.
go ahead.
We're
You
humble.
don't know how to respond to it.
Yeah, because
yeah.
we're very humble.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and you know, I need to, you know, we hire a lot of ex-military,
Yeah.
and they're not. I don't want to say they're better than this guy, but you know what? Military is, they know structure,
There.
and we are a paramilitary organization that we are driven by structure. And you're 100% right. I mean, you go into a home where there's no military background,
Yeah.
law enforcement,
Mhm.
or let's say first responder, fireman, structured, right?
Yep.
And if you go into that environment, and I've been in there, you're too structured.
Yeah.
You get up at this
Too
time, you do this, and you
disciplinarian.
do this,
Yeah.
because you know what? That's the role in which we've lived
Mhm.
and we've worked. But I'll tell you, every veteran that or person that served that we hired,
Mhm.
we don't have any problems with,
Right.
because they know to follow the chain of command.
Mhm.
They
They
thrive
know.
on that.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
do.
The
But when
structure
you
is
take
huge.
them out of structure,
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
When you take and put them in an environment where there's no structure, me included,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we're like, okay, step back and let's
Mhm.
reevaluate. And it is. And I'll tell you, it's just I like I said, I could have done a number of things in my career,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't choose it over the world.
Sure.
You know?
I thought of your mom because she was a bus driver she retired as a bus
Mhm.
driver from Bedford, and how structured she was.
Mhm.
And,
yeah.
you know, because of that,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
you know, she was never late. And just, oh my God, if we're going to dinner,
Mhm.
man, she was on it. She was very structured.
Mhm.
And it's important. Our daughters were raised that way because of Jamie being in, because I wasn't really structured at all.
Mhm.
You know,
You were the guy who just said, go do whatever
Oh,
you want
man.
to do. And right.
I
take that out.
I
of
had
you.
no structure. Well, I'm into demolition, and my dad was demolition, so I'm the opposite of structure, destructure, or whatever.
But I'm saying that in a compliment,
I'm the
right?
yin to her yang.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's good.
It
That's, you know, opposite attracts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's good.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's but I know. I was trying to think, but I'm go ahead.
Yeah. It's okay.
I get all wound up.
People really, and I don't, and I'm going to make the assumption, because I'm not a police officer, but when you get out of serving as a police officer, right, or a fireman, right, it's got to be that same, what am I doing now, right?
Mhm.
Because I know, like, I was like, ooh, I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
I feel those shackles coming loose. I'm so excited. And I got out here and I was like, whoa.
Right.
So I got to tell you a story. And I'll mention his name, Dave Davison. He was a great friend of mine, or is a great friend of mine. Worked at the sheriff's office. He's a detective, and I probably talked to him once, twice a week.
Mhm.
Just a great friend of mine. Was in Vietnam. I probably learned more about military from Dave. When my son was young, we went down to the Air Force Museum in Ohio, and Dave, just a wealth of knowledge about the military. But he retired. And when he retired, and this was well after the fact, you know, him and I were having dinner one day, and he said, Troy, I'm telling you, he said, I was at my end of the rope. I said, what do you mean, Dave? He said, Troy, I couldn't deal with it. and we talked, and not a bad thing,
Right.
but he was, he went from the military and then went right into law enforcement. So he went from one structure to another structured
Right.
environment
Uh-huh.
and with no break.
Mhm.
And then, and he had his health and everything. It was just the time he had to, I don't want to say had to retire, but there was a lot of changing in the contracts, and he wanted to keep those good benefits that he had. So he left, or he retired, and he still had a lot of years of work in him. I know he did, but nevertheless, he retired, and he said it was a struggle to go from, and Dave was one of those guys. He was 120 miles an hour all day. Every time he was a detective, so he got called in. He never didn't answer the phone. He was always there for the younger deputies. And then boom, he turns in his keys, his phone, his car, and he doesn't have to get up and do anything in the morning now. And I don't know if this is the right word to use, but I'm sure he felt like he had no purpose.
Right.
Oh,
And now we know, and I don't say that in a bad way, because he did have purpose, right?
Sure.
Right.
Now he's got grandkids, and he does a lot of
It's
stuff.
changed.
But for that first 6 months, and he shared this with me, and you're absolutely right. When you were saying that hit my mind right away. This is Dave Davison,
Yeah.
So
I can totally see that, because I just had, like, what does retirement look like? Is it on the golf course? Is it fishing? Do you, because some people, like my grandpa set up to go fishing, and some people, I'm going to go, or get in a motorhome and travel, whatever. But meaning, what does it look like? Because if we don't have the purpose, I'm going to spend it with my grandkids. Well, that's good, because you have to have purpose.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's a male or female, military obviously is more,
But part of it too is it's even beyond purpose. It's when you are a serving person, right? You have to fill that need, right? And so I talked about it on Mackenzie's show this morning, and I've said it 100 times in front of him, is that, unfortunately my family was sacrificed because I was mission driven, right?
Sure.
Mission first.
Yeah. Right.
Always first in, last out of every deployment, right?
Everyone.
Mission driven.
Yeah.
And so, and then, I handed flags to widows, right, on behalf of a grateful nation. And there'll never be anything in my life that will meet that kind of service, right? And give me that kind of
gratitude,
just
and all of it. Yep.
Fill my heart like that, because
Sure.
I mean, that is powerful, given that flag as a representation of all that is left of your husband or your wife, right? And to try to find that,
she actually formed it and everything. Yeah.
to try to find that in the civilian sector, it's
Where is it
impossible
at?
to,
yeah. There's
you
nothing
can't,
that's.
right?
I don't know that I could do that.
right.
You know what I'm saying? That's that's a task that I hope I never have to do in my line of work.
Yeah. And it is, just trying to merge into that, the
Civilian life.
civilian piece, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, again, my first year out, I had no idea what was happening, right? I was just kind of losing my mind,
Right.
and then, but now that I'm in the position that I'm in, and, running Little Blessings the way that we're running it, and helping the families and the children, and, now encompassing the community, I think it is such a key component to build it together as community partners. And
So that people in our community that do leave the service life, whether it be military service, fire service, police service, paramedic service, I see that as a value, because now they can migrate themselves into volunteering, helping Little Blessings.
Yeah.
Now they fill their void.
right.
And you hit the nail on the head. We can only do so much fishing. You
Yeah.
can only play so much golf.
Right.
You can only travel so much.
Sure.
And you want to come back to your roots.
Right.
Yep.
And that's why I value this partnership, is because someday I may be that guy that leaves police work, and you know what, I can only play so much golf, but I may be 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, go down and spend some time there. We have another individual that retired from our organization, was a Marine, and he's out volunteering,
Sure.
and that just I think that fills that void.
It does. And it's, protect and serve, you're
That's
serving, like I said, service, that word, and that makeup of an individual, that it doesn't stop until you're probably physically not able to, because there was somebody we had that, all the different things that they volunteered to do. I don't know if it was the couple from the VFW or what, but just volunteering, whether it's a church or community,
There are
local
so
food
many-
bank,
Yeah,
just
and
all
that's the
they
good
were
part about-
full of volunteering.
Right.
It's like-
Of what we do too. So
We watch Hallmark every now and then.
Right.
Yeah.
So we
You like that? See? You?
we give back to the
don't?
community. So it is not just about Little Blessings and Duke Farms. We submerge ourselves within the community. So there's an organization called Let's Build Beds, right? We go out there and we help that organization, or New Beginnings Mercy House. So we try to partner, right? And to give, because it's not just about the equine program. It's about creating that space, right? Where people have a safe space to feel, right? And so it might be somebody's a builder, right? And they want to come over and they want to be part of us of let's build beds and go help, So we try to find different fits for different people,
They have that skill set that they
Sure.
did for many, many years, and they want to use that skill set in a different capacity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not to produce a living,
Sure.
put a roof over their head, but to give back. And that's what's so great about Monroe County.
Yeah, it is.
I don't care if you wanted to raise money to build widgets.
Mhm.
You'd gather enough people to give you the money
Yeah.
to build them widgets.
Sure.
Mhm.
And like the community dinners, I was
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah, once
up
a
there
month
at the-
community dinners, yeah.
just and I know that it's a good fit, like the kids thing, but the community thing is it's a no brainer.
Mhm.
And then to be active and proactive within our community,
Right.
it is the right thing. And you're showing the kids, just all of it, what
Mhm.
this future has for us. Little
Right.
blessings, all of
That's
us, and the partnership with the law enforcement and everything is just
And what I usually
the
tell
sky is the limit.
Yeah, and I usually tell the guests on the show is, they're like, "Why do you do this podcast, right? Why do you do this live stream?" Is because we try to reach the veterans and the community partners that are isolating out there by themselves, right? The things that we talk about here, having you on there as the sheriff and a police officer, who knows that there isn't somebody out there going, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know this relationship was in this community," right? So this is what we're trying to do, is trying to reach those people who are sitting home all by themselves and think they have no resources, right? And so we know the statistics of suicide across the board in first responders, and military people. It's ridiculous.
right?
Well,
right?
and this COVID pandemic has
Right.
caused this to explode. I
Yes.
will tell you,
Mhm.
Since I took over the jail division in 2013 under Sheriff Malone, I quickly studied and embedded myself in mental health. And I will tell you, 67% of our jail population suffer from mental health illness.
Mm,
So if that's our jail population, what is society?
right.
Right.
And I can tell you, on a 24-hour day, we probably handle anywhere from 5 to 8 mental health calls for service in Monroe
Really?
County. Yeah.
Like,
And
what does one look like? I mean, just
Well, it could
when you
be
say
just
that.
somebody that has called up and says, "I'm going to commit suicide."
Oh, right. Okay.
Somebody that's, I'm having severe anxiety or
Uh-huh.
depression, and I just don't feel there's
Or
anything
their
to live
spouse
for.
calls and
Or-
says, "Hey,
and most generally, it's
somebody."
it's not them themselves.
Right.
It's a
gonna
family,
say,
a friend. Hopefully, it's somebody that they
Recognizing it.
reached out to
Mhm.
Correct.
before a
Mm.
serious tragedy occurs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we're there to give them help. And now the pandemic has just we used to go from we'd get 1 or 2 every now and maybe every couple days is the number we're getting now. And I attribute it to, and by no means am I an expert in this, and I don't
No,
want
right.
to portray that,
Mhm.
but I can tell you we have the data to support what I'm
Sure.
saying.
Mhm.
And it's a shame, and we need community partners like Little Blessings that we can say, hey, we through our process of vetting what occurred, now we can put that tool in our toolbox and say, do you know there's a Little Blessings? Maybe we can get you involved in
Right.
that
Yeah.
in that environment to
Yeah.
help you, one, let you know that you still have a purpose in this
Right.
community.
Mhm.
And
Right.
boy, what better than to get those people in? They receive help getting
Yep.
through their emotions,
Mhm.
Yep.
and now they can help somebody else and be a valued
The
partner as
animals,
well.
yeah, the animals
Yeah.
have a huge, and everything in the
Yeah,
garden, all
for
that
sure.
it does.
Yeah.
And I think and with social media, it isn't the numbers then, oh, hey, I seen this. And then pretty soon they share it. And then, like you just said, that's the snowball effect.
Right.
It's social media.
Mhm.
Yep.
Networking.
Yep. Social media. We say it a lot, and I'm going to say it again tonight because I
Mhm.
haven't yet. It ain't what you know, it's who you know.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of this show and what we
Absolutely.
try to connect. And Jamie does a huge part. It's just what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, and no different than, I'm part of Flags Over Veterans, and we're partnering with you.
Mhm.
We've got some great things that we're going to do
Hmm.
with your organization. And, you say that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mhm.
I became involved in Flags Over Veterans because they wanted to use the inmates to help mount their set their flagpoles.
Right.
Mhm.
So we partnered with them, and they're like, "Hey, would you like to join?" And again, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And then it's just been a great
And
organization.
that's a good thing too when you talk about the children or people that are an inmate or what. I mean, they're not castaways. I mean,
Yeah,
you
no.
know, 1%.
Yeah.
No, I mean it because they typically, and
Right.
I was 1% or you're
Mhm.
1% of it, meaning that it gives them purpose and it does help them and rehabilitation.
People
and,
truly make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely.
and want to
I
change.
I know that. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For sure.
But that's what I meant is that's such a good thing, all the
Well,
way
but
around.
again, and the inmates enjoy getting out. They
Yeah.
see the fruits of their labor.
Yep.
They can tell their kids, "Hey, I helped
Yep.
Flags Over
Yep.
Veterans mount that flag."
Mhm.
And again, people don't, for the majority. Now, we do have some people in our
Sure.
community that strive on violating the rights of society.
Right.
Mhm. Right.
But for the most part, people don't just get up in the morning and say, "I'm
No,
going
I'm
to
gonna
take
be
the
a
life
criminal.
of criminals."
Right. Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. It
Yeah.
no, and it's like the HIT program or helping inmates through training,
Yeah.
but all of that is with purpose and just what
Yep.
what we're about.
Pardon me? What's that? I don't know if it's still active or not.
I don't know if because I think they not decommissioned it.
Yeah,
or,
Yeah, I don't
because
want
they put up all the flags and used the funds, and so no, it's no longer.
It's no
Right.
longer a formal.
Mhm.
I think it's still a formal nonprofit,
Mhm.
but I don't think they're doing as much with it. And
Correct.
yeah, we just met a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff, I really, really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to our viewers, to get a little insight in what, our vision is with partnering with you and how critical it is with first responders and military working together. And just really want to thank you for everything that you're doing in our community to try to help us.
And as I said in the beginning, thank you. And it's an honor for me to be here and to promote the sheriff's office and to continue to build them relationships and foster that network group so that we can continue to make Monroe County a safe place to live and raise a family and work.
Mhm.
And we all have to come together and do that. We
Yeah.
all have to.
Yes,
Sure.
And it's just not me as the sheriff
No.
or Chief Massengill as the fire service. We have to work in collaboration.
Certainly.
Yeah, it's definitely all our job. It's like
Yep.
safety, it is.
Well, thank you again, Sheriff.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have a great week.
You too.
We will see you guys next week.
All right.
Good night.